Welcome back to the channel, and I will be talking specifically about dark ambient and raw black metal today. I covered a little bit of it last time, however, I was a little bit more broad with the spectrum and went a lot more into dungeon synth, moreover, than I should have. So yeah, this is essentially a part 2 to that first video, but talking a little bit more in depth with a little bit more research. The other video was kind of on a whim with just a couple of things I threw together, but this one is going to be a little bit more thoroughly researched, so it may take a little longer to come out. I'm currently recording this January 17th, but I'm not sure when it's going to be completed. So yeah. So first I'm going to be talking about AFX Twin, which is one of the first ambient musicians I got into. So the guy behind it, Richard David James, was born August 18th, 1971, and he's an Irish-born British musician, composer, and DJ. So he started out by DJing in clubs in the late 80s in Cornwall, which is where he grew up, and he released his first EP, Analog Bubble Bath, in 1991 on Mighty Force Records. So, the placement of that video might have seemed pretty random. However, it was actually the first piece of media that introduced me to AFX Twin. I was kind of scrolling through Instagram, looking at edits of the film Come and See, which is that film. It's one of the most horrifying movies ever. And the reason why I looked up the film in the first place was just my incredible interest in World War II history in general. And I'd heard about it being horrifying, so I thought, why not watch it? And good lord, does it live up to the horrifying name. However, I'm getting a little bit off topic at the moment. So going back to AFX Twin, I found that song, and it's specifically called number 5, or Grass, on the Selected Ambient Works 2 album. I'll be showing the album cover here. And really that whole album kind of had a vibe of nuclear apocalypse, essentially, the aftermath of it, of just the earth being kind of empty. Here's a list of my top 3 favorite AFX Twin tracks. I love almost all of his music, though some of it's good for sleeping, some of it's good for concentrating. Here's my top 3. So the first track we have is Alberto Balsam, which is from the I Care Because You Do album, which is one of the most famous AFX Twin albums, and the image itself resulted in many memes and so on. So my next favorite track is Cock for 10, which is off the Drugs album, which came out in 2001, and it's definitely one of the more energetic AFX Twin songs, you could say.
What's up, baby girl?
Please turn that off.
Why, you don't like my music?
Is it music? Because it sounds like a bunch of sex noises over a bass line.
Oh, I get it. You don't like my music because I'm gay.
So the next thing I will be talking about is Tangerine Dream's Phaedra, which I found out about back in 2017, 2018, something like that. And I was a freshman in high school at the time, and I had seen the Bandersnatch movie, and I was immediately drawn to the creepier sounding song that you had in the choices. And so I picked Phaedra by Tangerine Dream, and it was the first ambient album that I found that I really enjoyed and could just listen to for hours on end. So I did. So my descent into eventual noise continued with ambient music. Some would incorporate pieces of noise such as screaming, yelling, throwing things, field recordings, and so on. The first thing I'm going to be talking about in relation to a little bit more of noise is the group Stalag, which I found out about a couple months ago. So funnily enough, Stalag is the kind of music, if you can even call it that, for people who like to listen to shit that just sounds like, for example, sounds horrible, doesn't it? Well, actually, the story behind it is somewhat wholesome. I don't know if wholesome's exactly the right word, but what happened was Stalag, which was a Dutch black metal noise group, they would use mental institution patients as vocalists in their music, except they would have these people sign a form saying that they were doing this willingly, they weren't being forced to, and so on. And what the group allowed them to do was they would put them in a room and just tell them, just scream, let out everything. And so this was the result. Nearly 3 hours and several albums of just essentially tormented people releasing all of their anger, all of their fear, and everything. That's what I love so much about it, that when you just hear it without context, you're like, oh, it's just people screaming, that sounds kind of scary. However, the story makes it even almost worse. Not worse in a bad way, but worse as in you have more empathy for these people. And in an interview, the group talked about how they got access to these patients, which they said, quote, "One of our members works in a mental institution in Holland, so this is how we got access and permission to record. All patients who have worked with us gave their full written permission. One of the patients who suffers from schizophrenia even made the cover drawing for the Pure Misanthropia CD." So, of course, for a lot of the patients, it was a very good therapy for them. Several said it was the best therapy that they had had in years. However, one of the band members was almost strangled to death by one of the patients who was used as a vocalist. Said patient had stabbed his mother 30 times and was in the institution because of homicidal ideation. But of course, with severely mentally ill people in that sense, it's a little bit hard to predict what they're going to do. However, their voices still deserve to be heard, and they deserve just as much respect as anyone else, though it's very important to be careful with them. So, on our last little leg of the rabbit hole that we're going down, I am going to be talking about NB Lulu Guggle, which is a black metal project and also noise project that was first started in California. So how I first heard about this band was I was just looking up random black metal noise bands because I was interested in starting one, and I wanted to see how many were out there that I could get inspiration from. And NB Lulu Guggle was this really long name that I saw, and the first album that I heard from them was Noisemongers for Goat Serpent. And so I just really liked the imagery, kind of the ridiculousness of the whole thing. It's obvious that some of the music is supposed to be kind of a joke, some of the imagery is kind of a joke. The names of the songs can be kind of funny sometimes, and yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I actually, in fact, found a little booklet in an occult bookstore that was called The Book of Sagotin, and in fact, it was dedicated to the members of NB Lulu Guggle, which got me excited about the band again. So, of course, I bought the booklet, and now I seem to have lost it. However, I looked up the Cult of Goat Serpent book, and I found, actually, the book I was looking for, which was the Book of Sagotin. and it was created by Tarl Warwick, and Amazon best describes it as a work of pure filth and stupidity. The Book of Sagutin is a satirical joke cult manuscript meant to mock other such works, which are doled out to the gullible while pretending to impart esoteric knowledge. Likewise, it is an extension of static and noisecore music based loosely around Goat Serpent and Sagutin, part of the mythological hipster pantheon of NB And Warwick, as I mentioned earlier, dedicated the pamphlet to the band and mentions it by name several times in the manuscript. So, thank you guys for watching and listening to my usual ramblings about music. I do have a split with Morris 666 coming out soon under my new noise project, Iramir. And yeah, so look forward to that, and see you guys next time.